Welcome to Andy's Garage. I'm Andy Phillips. Today I'm going to show you how to change the tire on your vehicle. And it's a very basic thing. You would assume that a lot of people know how to do that, but unfortunately not everyone does. And that's something that you really need to know in case you're ever caught in a situation where you have to change it and maybe you can't get someone to help you, you can't call somebody. So that's what we're going to cover today, just a basic overview on how to do it. Let's go ahead and get started. Now, sometimes you can be proactive in not winding up in this situation, and to do that, it's important that you understand your tires and that you know basically how to read the tires, because sometimes there can be indications in the tread depth, there can be indications just in the code on the tire. If you want to see a video I did on how to understand your tires a little bit more, you can check it out via the link above. I'll also have it down in the description. So that'll help you out so you can at least be proactive in making sure that the tires that are on your vehicle are safe and not in danger of going flat to begin with. Now, in other cases, unfortunately, driving down the street, getting a blowout, maybe you're at work or when shopping, you're coming back to your vehicle and you realize that the tire is flat as shown here. Those are the cases where it's important to know how to change your tire, where the spare is located in your vehicle, where the jack is located, how to use the jack, where to position it under the car, how to get the tires off so you don't break studs, all that stuff. That's what we're going to cover. So let's head around back to the car and I'll show you what you're going to be looking for. Now, a lot of people, they get a car and they don't even take the time to look in the trunk and get familiar with what's back there. It's important to do that. If you haven't done that, please take the time to do that, because that makes it a lot easier than trying to fumble through when you're in the middle of a crisis. So it's always important when you get a vehicle, see what you have. Unfortunately, some manufacturers don't even include a spare tire anymore to cut costs. They're just giving you just a little tire inflator as shown here. So what we have, you open this up, you think you've got a spare, and you got this nonsense right here. Just a little styrofoam canister with an air compressor and a small little attachment as well. Sometimes you might get a fix-a-flat, but as you know, if you're dealing with a major tire issue, those do you absolutely no good. So what I would recommend, because you can clearly see there's a spot here for the tire, get this nonsense out of here. Get yourself a real spare in there, so that way you're not caught off guard in a situation where this does you absolutely no good. So to remove this, and I'll get a close-up, you can just unscrew it in the middle, and then we can pop that out and then put a spare in here, and that way you're safe and good to go. Get this out, pull this out of here. What we have is a spare that we matched up the lug nut pattern. Put that in there. In addition, we also have the jack, and we have the lug nut wrench, because they give you none of that with this vehicle. They just give you that cheap styrofoam that we saw. There's everything in place, and now at least we have a safe vehicle. In the event that we just need to fill the tire, we have the compressor. In the event that we need to change it, we have the replacement and the jack and the tool to remove the lug nuts. So we're good. So in the case here, we're dealing with a vehicle that has a spare. If you have a car that does not have a spare because of that issue that we just showed, go to a salvage yard or a junk yard. That's what I did. One of my vehicles came without that. The first thing I did, I went to a salvage yard, found a vehicle that had the same lug nut pattern, got the spare, and I got the lug nut wrench for that, and got that in that vehicle right away. Because unless you just have a small leak, that air compressor does nothing. If you've got a blowout or a major flat, you're having to call roadside assistance. You're wasting that time and money when all you can do is just swap it out with a spare and be done. So I would strongly advise doing that. So fortunately with this car here, this had everything, so we don't have to do as we saw with that other vehicle. But as mentioned already, strongly advise doing that. That way you're not caught in a situation. So let's see what we have here. Let's say in the event you're driving down the road, unfortunately, you get a flat, you get a blowout, whatever, you need to change the car. You go ahead, you open your trunk, and now you're trying to look and see, what do I need to do? What are the things I need? Another thing, if I can stress it, do not clutter your trunk with junk, because all that does is make more of a hassle trying to find all the parts and dig things out. So as much as you can keep that clear, keep it clear so there's easy access. So let's get a close up here and I'll show you what's under here and what we're going to remove. We're going to go ahead and lift this panel up, and there's our spare, and our jack is in this little bag here. You can just remove this, get that out of the way, and that way you have easy access here. Sometimes you may have a locking, kind of a little wing nut that's holding the tire in place. This case here, this is an older vehicle, so that's missing at this point, but you may have to unscrew that. So what we do is we have this. I'm going to remove these, and then we'll take a look and see what we have. Pull the tire out. So these are the items that you're going to be taking out. You've got your spare tire. You've gone ahead and you've removed that, and then you're either going to have a loose jack and lug nut wrench, or in the case here, it comes in a little bag. Open the bag up, and I'll show you what we have. You have a basic jack, and then you have one of these that can open up, and that's to remove your lug nuts, and it's also to raise and lower the jack. So these are the items that you should have, and as we've already said a few times, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but the importance of it, if you don't have all these components, please go to a salvage yard or a junkyard or whatever and get those pieces. That way you're driving around with a vehicle that's completely safe and able to do what you need to do. So let's head over to the vehicle. I'm going to go ahead and show you where to place this, how all this goes together, so we can raise the vehicle and swap out the tire. If you're unsure as far as the whole process, you can always turn to your vehicle's manual. And if you go to the back, the table of contents, you can always look it up as shown here under tires, and then just find changing. In this case here, it's page 152, which is where we are right here. And that covers everything as far as removing it, how to do it, where to connect the jack, all that. So you can always go to your owner's manual if you have that. If you don't, then what we're going to cover here is going to be pretty much generic for most vehicles. Now this part of the scissor jack is known as the saddle. That little indentation, if we turn it here, you can see it. That needs to rest in between an area on the vehicle underneath, and we'll show you that, which is known as the darts. And that's kind of a reinforced section to where this can connect and raise the vehicle. If you don't put it in the right spot, you can actually damage the vehicle. So let me show you what we're talking about when we speak of the darts. This is the darts. You have that little notch there and notch there. This area in the middle is where you want to be placing the saddle of the jack. You have that there on the front, and then if we head here towards the back, we have it there as well. And there they are right there. So this is where you would be positioning the saddle of the scissor jack right there as well. Now in the event that you're changing the tires on an SUV, sometimes they can be different. You don't have the darts that we saw underneath the car, but instead you have a little notch out in the frame. Here, I'll get a close-up, and that's where the jack will be going into. And the SUV has a different kind of jack that I'll show you in a minute. Coming behind the driver's or passenger's front, you have that little notched out area. You see right there? This is the jack that's used on this type of vehicle. And that, see that kind of saddle piece there with a notch up in there as shown here. And then from that point, you can raise it to get it off the ground. And to raise this one, you basically have a couple metal rods, which I'm not showing right here, but they're with the jack in your vehicle that go together. You insert it in there, and that will turn this and cause it to go up, and that way to go down. If you need to jack it up here from the rear, what you want to do is you can use this part here of the axle, or on the other side as well. But you do not want to put it here. This is sometimes referred to as the pumpkin. You don't want to put it underneath here. So the way that you would do it is the jack would then, the saddle would go right there underneath that axle tube. And as I already mentioned, you don't want to be putting it underneath here anywhere. You'll damage that. And that's for the rear on SUVs and trucks. Now the location of the spare on SUVs and trucks, you'll find it at the rear of the vehicle underneath. So if you get underneath the vehicle and look up, you'll see what we have here is the spare. And it's held on, has kind of like a cable that you'll lower it down through. It's nice and sturdy, as you can see, because it's locked in. But you have that little locking piece that holds it up. And if you just connect the crank and lower it, it'll slowly come down out of the back. It'll be a little bit of a hassle. But once you get it all the way down, then we can go ahead and then pull it off of that cable, and then we're good to go. But then the rest of it, as far as removing the tire, would all be the same as on any vehicle. If you have a vehicle like this one where you don't have the the really accentuated notched out sections, you can feel right here, usually it's like about a couple inches from the actual wheel area, you'll feel that the metal's kind of beefed up there. That's where you want to be putting it. So what we're going to do, we're going to slide the saddle under there, and then by hand, I'm just going to turn this and raise it into place before we actually start. Make sure it's nice and straight and level. Hand tighten it. And the next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that the vehicle is on level ground and that it's either in park or reverse before we actually start raising it off the ground. Car is secure, it's in park, everything is set up now. We have this here. Now we're ready to just pop that out, and this comes right out like that. And you'll just place this, and I'll get a close up of the inside here, but it's basically set up like a socket, fits right on here. We can go ahead and raise it up. We're not going to take it completely off the ground, the tire. We're going to take it up a little bit. Then we're going to loosen the lug nuts while it's still on the ground because you don't want the tire rotating. So I'm going to raise it up a little bit. We'll get the lug nuts loosened, and then we'll take it up the rest of the way, hand remove the lug nuts, and then swap out the tire. We have it high enough to where I want to go ahead and loosen the lug nuts. Now, to do that, you basically just turn it this way so you have an L shape and put them on here and then just lift up. Sometimes these can be tight on there. There we go. Loosen that one. Now you got to be careful because if you've had your tires worked on at a tire shop, sometimes they torque them too tight. When they use the impact wrench, you can't get them off by hand. The thing you do not want to do is you don't want to put these on and be kicking it or stepping on it, because what will happen, and I'll show you what happened here, you'll wind up breaking the wheel stud. Now they can be replaced. You have to remove the hub assembly to take them out. It can be a hassle, so it's better to just do it right, but let me show you here what will happen if you break it. That's a wheel stud that was broken off and needs to be replaced. So if you're interested in knowing how to do that, please subscribe to my channel because I'll be showing that in a very soon upcoming video, how to replace a broken stud. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now. We're just going to loosen the rest of these. There we go. There we are. Man. And that one. So now that they're loose, you don't want to take them off completely. Let's go ahead and finish jacking it up, and then we'll be back to get the tire off. So the tire is off the ground, as you can see there. And we're ready now to remove the actual lug nuts completely so we can slide this off, put the spare on, and put it back on the ground. Go ahead and remove these by hand now that we've loosened them already. Some of them may need a little bit extra of a turn. Get them off. Now, depending how long it's been since your tires have been removed, or actually since your rims have been removed, sometimes they can be kind of stuck to the rotor. You might have to give them a little kick to kind of break them loose if need be, but we'll see how this one is. Go ahead here. Take this one here. And it looks like this one's going to come right off, no problem. Pull that off. And you can see here where that stud that broke off. Now you can get a good shot of it. I'll get a close up. Let's put the spare on. So we'll grab the spare. Now it's important to check your spares regularly. Make sure that they're properly filled, they're not worn out, no leaks or anything, so there's no point in putting a spare on there if it's damaged. So this one's in very good shape. So what we're going to do is just hold it up, line it up to the actual studs, slide it right on, and then you can hold it with your hand and just manually go ahead and tighten these on. And you want to put them on diagonal, like kind of across from one another. So we'll put this one on first, then we'll do this one here. You don't want to go this way because sometimes you can get things out of whack. And the same would be if you were using impact wrench or whatever. So we have this on. Then now we'll come here and do this one here. And you can tighten them as tight as you can get them by hand. And then we'll lower it. Once we have it down on the ground, then we'll go around with the lug nut wrench, tighten them all the way, and then we're done. That's good. So now we can go ahead and lower it. And pretty much the same way we took it up, just going counterclockwise this time to take it down. Pull that out, and now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take this, come on this side, and you want to put these on and hand tighten it as good as you can. You don't want to over tighten it, that way you don't have an issue. And as we tighten them, we're going to do as we did on the last one. Do this one, we'll cut over to this one across from it. And normally we would have had this stud, we would go there next and then come to this one. So this is here. And we're done. That spare's on there. We can throw the rest of the stuff in the trunk. And what we can do now is put it in here. And then next thing that you're going to want to do is take whatever the tire issue was, whether it was a blowout, flat, or whatever, take it to a tire center, get it either replaced or fixed. You only want to leave the spare on there just as a temporary means of transportation. So let's put this in and wrap it up. Just lay the tire right in. That tire's a little bit bigger than the spare, so you may not be able to put the lid on properly. But the next thing you want to do, if your hardware goes in a little pouch or a bag, go ahead and put it back in place. You always want to keep it where it needs to be. You can lay that in here. And then we can go ahead and put this lid back on it. Like I said, this tire is a little bit wider, so it's not going to go down as well, but at least everything's in place. That pretty much wraps up this video on how to change out the tire on your vehicle. I hope that this video was informative for you. I hope it helped you out with any projects you're working on. If not, I hope it was at least information that you can retain. And, you know, God forbid, in the event that you do get a flat, whether it's out on the road or you go out in the morning, your tire's flat, whatever, you'll know how to do it and how to do it properly. So please send me any questions, comments. I would love to hear from you. And as always, I appreciate all the support. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you next time.